Hey guys, I'm Verlin and welcome to the first episode from zero to publishing, in which we will have one project, take one project idea and develop it until we publish it. So for the first season of the series, I'll be making a audio recorder. It's a floating window. It has rounded corners, it works, it has the whole audio spectrum thing. You can play back the audio, save the audio. When you press play, it lights up more so you can clearly see that you're recording. And yeah, let's see how to make it. In this series, we will go over how to plan a minimum viable project, setting up a version control system, creating a new project with Godot, creating the UI for the program, programming the audio recorder, adding translations, decreasing the build size, making a release page, creating documentation for it, like a tutorial like how to use it, export for multiple platforms, automating the export process for easier publishing, and then finally publishing the final project. So there's kind of a lot to go into. This will be a 5-part series. You can tell by the thumbnails if the dots are colored. So first we have the project setup. Next episode will be UI design. After that the programming. After that preparing for release and then publishing. But first the project setup. So first of all we should set up a project. So let's click for the new repository on GitHub. I'm using GitHub. You can use whatever you want. I will call this GD for Godot audio recorder, an audio recorder made with Godot. It's public. I want to add a readme. I want to add the Godot gitignore. We will change the gitignore file later. And for license, I will choose the MIT license. If you make your code public, it's better to create some kind of license. But yeah, anyway, create repository. And we have our project. So let's copy. If you copy SSH, you will need to add an SSH key on your PC that links to GitHub. I won't go into that kind of thing. If you don't want to do that, just go for HTTPS. And now let's create a new folder. So I will just call this audio recorder. I already have audio recorder test. This was a test project that you saw before. Inside of here, we open a terminal and then we type git clone with a link. This should take a little bit of time. Then we close this. I will show all the hidden files. Copy this. Voila. And now we have our Git project. So what I will do now is just open my editor. I use NeoVim. Use whatever you like. Next up, let's create the Godot project. I'm trying to go a little bit fast over this because it's not too complicated. So audio recorder. And I will make a folder src source. So if you add this, the path specified doesn't exist. So let's quickly create this. Voila. And that should be it. So we have the audio recorder and it will save to this path. And I'll quickly have to type this again. We won't use any version control metadata inside of Godot itself. So we set this to none. And you can set this to whatever you want. Forward plus, mobile compatibility. I'll take compatibility. Mobile will probably also do well enough, but yeah. Anyway, create and edit. And once this loads up, we have our empty project. We will mainly be working in a 2D. If you use an external editor, go into here and press debug with external editor, because else when you run into a bug, it will open in here and mess up the interaction between your code editor and Godot. We have our window. We won't really do anything inside of here yet. So we want to make an audio recorder and we don't really have any idea of what we want. So for the planning, I use Figma. It's an easy program to get used to. I'll create a kind of layout of what I would want. So I want to have a top bar. Like I want a custom menu because I want the rounded corners. If you do rounded corner stuff, you cannot really have the normal top bar, menu bar. So I want this kind of black. Instead of here, I will add some text. So just probably the audio title, audio recorder. So this is just kind of like a short sketching stage. If you want to make some kind of like software and you don't really know like how to start, this is kind of a good thing. So something you would probably want is a play button for people to play back audio with. You can turn it. Like this is just for like quick frameworking to see will the layout actually make sense once you made it or not. Then we also need a circle for the thing. So this is basically how I designed the whole program. I'm just doing a quick demonstration of how I did it, so it makes more sense. So inside of here, this button, let's make it the same kind of color as this. And let's add some text. And then a box for our spectrum. One of the earlier designs that I had for this was actually to have the spectrum smaller and have a playback bar. So basically I would have this kind of like a slider, and you could, during like playback of what you recorded, you could move it around. The only thing is, for a minimum viable project, this is getting too much to implement. So for a minimum viable project, try to go small. Like I could create a settings menu to adjust volume, like if you want to add decibels to the recording or not. Have an older thing, like we have the audio spectrum, but you could also have the kind of meter like in OBS. If you go to OBS, you can see the audio capture. It goes into the red if you speak too loudly. It goes into orange when you speak just fine. I think that's how I remember it. Like if you're in orange, that's fine. And green is too soft. When making minimum viable projects, don't think about too many things. I could have not done this audio spectrum and just keep it like this. But this felt too simple, and you need to have some kind of feedback when you are recording to make certain that there's actually voice. Like I could have done it like in OBS to create this. But I came across this thing here when trying to implement the audio waveforms inside of my video editor that I'm making in Godot. And I thought from, okay, let's just quickly implement this because the code is available as a Godot demo project. I did not 100% use this code because it's kind of complicated. If you look at this code, oopsie, over here, it's not the easiest to like understand what is going on. So I adjusted things. And talking about the Godot demo projects in audio, there's also another project here, Mic Record. It's kind of similar to what we do, but then without the spectrum and with more settings. The only problem with these settings is pressing the stereo will mess up your audio. Changing the mix rates can also mess up your audio. The format can also mess up your audio. So we'll just stick with the defaults. But yeah, anyway, so this is a design that I came up with to do this with an audio spectrum. We make it big. And if you go to the actual design that I made, it's this. And I mainly use this to add some extra things. So again, you can see this bar here. I did remove this. I did not implement this because it will be too much. And I just made this one bigger to have more of a visual representation of what you're talking about. So when nothing is recorded, I want to have this one grayed out, this one grayed out, and this one grayed out. When you press save, I wanted to save the last part that you used. So when you make multiple recordings at once for the same project, you don't always need to select the same folder. And the record button needs to turn red. I did not really make this too visible. It needs to be red when you're recording to make it extra visible that you're recording. But yeah, let's go back to our Godot project, because we need to do some very basic settings for this first episode. So project settings, audio record. First of all, advanced settings, turn this on. You will need this. Now, the project name, I should probably have made this name a little bit better when I created it. You can add translations for the name. Yeah, feel free to do that. It's not something that I will focus on. For description, an audio recorder made with Godot. If you end up translating your game or software, you should probably localize your name. For the version, I will just pick 1.0. I'll show later how we can like update this automatically when we create a new version. But that is for the last episodes. We can have a custom user directory, but at this stage, we don't really need to save data anywhere. But for debug logs, this may be helpful. So let's just create one in case something goes wrong and you can't figure out why it goes wrong. It's just going to this folder. Then for icon, that's something we will do also later on. Then we go to the run. For the main scene, we don't have anything yet. So let's quickly create that. So a scene, I'll just call it interface. And it should be in user interface. Let's save this. Let's quickly run this and select the current scene. We directly close it again. So main scene is set. For the rest, we don't really need to do anything in here except for low processor mode, because we're not really making a game or anything. It's more a piece of software. We can turn this on. I have run into problems with previous versions of Godot that this would cause issues, but normally it should not be that big of an issue. With the whole like spectrum thing, this could make the spectrum update kind of slowly every now and then, but should not be too big of a problem. For boot splash, this is something you can change after you created an icon. But what we need is window. So for the window size, I won't really touch this too much because we will change this later on. But if you take a look at this project, like I made this quite big on purpose so it's easier to see for recording in OBS. The actual result will be smaller. You can see that, yeah, it's a floating window and it has rounded corners. If I put a background behind it, it has rounded corners. You can only achieve that if you enable borderless and transparent. Only enabling transparent, by the way, does not work. You also need to enable a little bit lower per pixel transparency. We turn this on. For the rest, I don't think we have anything to do in here. We will need to change this. And resizable, we need to turn resizable off because, yeah, there's not really any reason why people would want to resize it anyway. So let's turn resizable off. Also, turning resizable off, if I quickly launch the project now, it will result in a floating window. And of course, like it's empty and it's, yeah, it's transparent and it's empty. So if you quickly put like a color rect on top, so we actually have something to look at. Voila, we have a white floating window. On tiling window managers on Linux, this makes it floating, which is kind of helpful. But yeah, back to the transparency. Just doing this also is not enough. You need to go to display to rendering, viewport, and transparent background. So if we go further into these settings to rendering, display, rendering viewports, I think, yeah, viewport, transparent background. We need to turn this on. Then there's an other one for textures. If, like rendering textures, if you want to export for macOS, they like to do difficult, you will need to turn this one on. This will require a restart, so let's do that later. I think that's about it. For these scripts, I often turn on these warning errors just so you don't make any mistakes in your coding. It warns you if you're not using a value or something. It's kind of helpful. So let's save and restart. And I just remembered in project settings, we should probably also disable embedded windows, embedded sub windows. I don't know why this has been causing some issues on my PC. May not cause any issues on other PCs, but yeah, better turn it on, cannot hurt. And then there is one more thing that we need to do, but because by default, Godot cannot get your audio. So if we go into interface and we add an audio stream player, we can select audio stream microphone. So normally if I talk now, you would be able to hear me, but you cannot. Even if I put the volume louder, you cannot hear me. That is because project settings, we need to go into driver and enable inputs. Again, this will require restart. So now if we select autoplay and we launch, like it will be like an invisible window again. So let's add color rect again, just to make it somewhat visible of what we're doing. So with the volume cranked up, now you will also hear me. This will be very, yeah, let's close this. I think that this will be very bad for the recording, but you can hear microphone is inside of the editor. But yeah, this is episode 1. In episode 2, we will go more over the UI design. So we will start creating what you see inside of here, what you see inside, well, in this program. And as always, a very big thank you to all my Ko-fi supporters. Thank you very much for supporting me, the series, Kozen, future videos. Check out the Ko-fi link in the description below. Thank you. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.